The deck of the USS Enterprise was loud, engines humming, metal vibrating, sailors moving with routine precision. It was supposed to be just another controlled moment on one of the most powerful warships ever built. Then, in a heartbeat, routine turned into imminent catastrophe. A massive aircraft, fully fueled, sat parked where it shouldn't have been. A mistake. A mechanical failure. A chain reaction waiting to happen. If that plane moved the wrong way, fire would rip across the flight deck, setting off explosions that could cripple or destroy the ship. Hundreds of lives hung in the balance. And in that split second of chaos, one machinist made a desperate decision. No orders. No backup plan. No guarantee he would survive. He ran. As alarms screamed and crew members froze, trying to process what was unfolding, the machinist sprinted toward the aircraft. Heat, noise, and confusion swallowed him whole. He knew exactly what he was doing, and exactly what it could cost him. Then he jumped. Not into the ocean. Not to safety. But into a parked plane, using his own body to reach a critical control point that no one else could reach in time. This wasn't heroism born from calm bravery. This was instinct, training, and a raw, desperate understanding that if he didn't act right now, the Enterprise would burn. The aircraft lurched. Fuel sloshed. Metal groaned. Every second mattered. On a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, where fire is the deadliest enemy, there is no such thing as a small accident. One spark can become a floating inferno. The machinist knew this. Everyone on deck knew this. But only one person was close enough, and willing enough, to gamble everything. As his hands reached for the controls, the line between survival and disaster narrowed to inches. What followed would never make headlines the way battles do. There would be no victory parade. No dramatic footage replayed on the news. Yet naval historians would later agree on one thing. Without that desperate jump, the USS Enterprise might not exist today. This is the story of the moment when training met terror. When one ordinary sailor made an extraordinary choice. And how a single act, performed in seconds, saved a ship, its crew, and a legacy. The USS Enterprise, CVN 65, was more than just a ship. It was a floating city, a fortress, and a symbol of American naval might. From its nuclear-powered engines to the endless rows of aircraft on its flight deck, every inch of the Enterprise represented cutting-edge technology and the lives of hundreds of sailors. The ship had a reputation for precision, discipline, and unyielding efficiency. Yet, as powerful as it was, the Enterprise was not immune to danger. Warships, even when docked or cruising in peace, held countless hazards: fuel lines, jet engines, hydraulics, and weapon systems, all capable of turning a small mistake into a catastrophic accident. On the morning of the incident, the flight deck was a hive of controlled chaos. Pilots walked briskly, engineers checked systems, and sailors moved in a synchronized ballet across the massive deck. Every movement had a purpose, and every step followed strict protocol. For most of the crew it was routine, another day on the world's most famous aircraft carrier. But beneath the calm exterior, tension simmered. A parked aircraft, a fighter jet ready for deployment, had developed a critical mechanical issue. Its brakes were compromised. Its fuel tanks were full. And it sat in a precarious position, dangerously close to other jets, deck equipment, and hundreds of crew members. The imminent threat. Naval protocol dictates that parked planes are carefully monitored at all times. A small misalignment or accidental movement can escalate instantly. On this day, every sailor knew the potential disaster that lay within inches. A single spark could ignite a fuel line. A runaway aircraft could collide with others, triggering a domino effect of explosions. The Enterprise, while built to withstand battle damage, was not invincible to an accident of this scale. The alarms began as a whisper, a subtle warning in the background, then escalated into a deafening roar. Crew members started to scramble, trying to assess the situation. There was confusion, panic, and a rising sense of urgency. And in the midst of all this, one machinist recognized what no one else dared to confront. The machinist's decision. This machinist, an ordinary sailor with years of training but no combat glory, saw the plane's trajectory and calculated the consequences in an instant. He realized that conventional methods would not stop the aircraft. There was no crane, no tow vehicle, no tool that could intervene fast enough. The moment demanded action. Not cautious action. Not mediated action. But desperate action. He made his decision in a heartbeat. He would personally intervene, put his life on the line to prevent a disaster. Other sailors shouted warnings. Orders were given, but the machinist didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the plane, dodging crew members and deck obstacles. Adrenaline surged, sharpening his focus. Time stretched and compressed simultaneously. Every second felt like an eternity, yet the clock moved mercilessly fast. The jump. Then came the jump. Unlike a leap into water or a safe landing zone, this was a leap into danger. A parked, fully fueled aircraft with exposed metal, engines and precarious angles. The jump required perfect timing and precision, because any misstep could trigger the very disaster he was trying to prevent. He launched himself with full force, gripping the aircraft as he landed atop it. Sparks flew. Metal groaned under pressure. Crew members watched in stunned silence as this lone figure became the bridge between safety and catastrophe. His hands immediately went to the controls. He had studied the aircraft extensively, knew its mechanisms, and understood which lever, button, or cable could stabilize it. The desperate jump was only the first step. Now came the true test of skill, speed, and nerve. Controlling the uncontrollable. The machinist worked frantically, manipulating the controls, adjusting hydraulics, and applying every ounce of strength and training. The aircraft trembled under him, threatening to slide or tip. Fuel lines hissed. Deck equipment shuddered from the vibrations. Every sailor on the deck knew that failure was not an option. But there was no time for fear. Only action mattered. For minutes that felt like hours, he fought against physics, mechanics, and fate itself. He balanced his own weight, counteracted the plane's momentum, and gradually stabilized it enough to prevent a collision. The crew reacted. Below, crew members realized the magnitude of what was happening. They saw the machinist dangling, straining, holding a volatile piece of machinery in check with nothing but courage and raw instinct. Some tried to assist, but even their proximity could trigger a chain reaction. The machinist was alone by necessity, a single point of control, the linchpin between disaster and safety. Radio chatter was frantic, alarms blared, but above all, there was a collective sense of awe. The sailors watched history unfold in real time, understanding that ordinary rules no longer applied. One person had become the fulcrum of fate. The moment of crisis. At one point, the aircraft lurched violently. Fuel threatened to spill. Sparks ignited. Deck personnel braced for the worst. The machinist gritted his teeth, pulling levers and redirecting mechanical pressure. Sweat poured, muscles burned, but he held on. Every nerve screamed that this was impossible. Yet he refused to yield. In those critical moments, the USS Enterprise's fate hung in the balance. Not in a battle with an enemy, but in a test of human courage, quick thinking, and sheer desperation. Slowly the aircraft began to stabilize. The jerking motions eased. The plane's full weight shifted safely onto its landing gear. The crisis was being contained. Crew members realized what had happened. The machinist had, with his own body and mind, bridged a deadly gap between catastrophe and safety. His desperate actions had bought the time needed to fully secure the plane and avert disaster. Aftermath on the deck. When the immediate danger passed, the machinist finally climbed down. Exhausted, battered, and shaken, he returned to the deck as the crew erupted in relief. There were no medals in that moment, no grand ceremonies, just the quiet acknowledgement of a life saved, a ship saved, and a disaster averted. Naval historians later noted that without this single desperate intervention, the Enterprise could have faced severe damage, loss of aircraft, and potentially hundreds of casualties. The incident also highlighted the unsung role of ordinary sailors, those who, without fanfare, make split-second decisions that save lives and preserve history. This event became a case study in naval training. It emphasized the importance of quick thinking under extreme pressure, the critical role of individual initiative when standard protocols are insufficient, how courage combined with technical skill can avert unimaginable disasters. The machinist himself never sought fame. He was proud only that the Enterprise remained operational and that no crew members were harmed. Yet his desperate jump became legendary in naval circles. A story told and retold as a reminder of what one person can do in the face of imminent catastrophe. The flight deck of the USS Enterprise gradually returned to normal, though a quiet tension lingered in the air, like smoke after a fire. Sailors resumed their duties, but every step, every glance at the parked aircraft, carried a silent acknowledgement. What had just occurred was extraordinary. The desperate jump of one machinist had prevented a disaster that could have destroyed a ship, taken hundreds of lives, and left a permanent scar on naval history. It was difficult to capture the magnitude of that moment. The Enterprise was a massive warship, a technological marvel, a symbol of American naval power, yet all its systems, its engines, its weaponry could not replace the human element, the courage, quick thinking, and sheer will of one individual in a split-second crisis. While nuclear reactors, hydraulics, and protocols were designed to prevent accidents, none of them could act without someone to control them when the unthinkable happened. The machinist, now sitting on the edge of the deck, took a deep breath. Sweat dripped from his brow. His uniform was torn, his hands scraped and bruised, but there was a quiet satisfaction in his eyes. He had not acted out of heroism in the traditional sense. There were no medals being pinned, no applause ringing in his ears. He had acted out of necessity, instinct, and an understanding that hesitation could cost lives. His mind had raced, calculating every possibility, weighing every risk, and then committing to the single action that could prevent catastrophe. For the rest of the crew, that action had seemed miraculous. Some described it as almost supernatural, the way he had leapt, grasped the aircraft, and manipulated controls with precision under impossible pressure. To those watching, it was as if time had slowed, allowing him to navigate every second of chaos with surgical precision. They would never forget the image of him dangling above the deck, alone yet entirely in control, holding the line between disaster and survival. Naval historians later reflected on that day, emphasizing a simple truth: ships, no matter how advanced, rely on the people who serve them. The Enterprise was equipped with the best technology, the most sophisticated aircraft, and the most thorough protocols, but none of that mattered without individuals willing to act decisively in a moment of crisis. In many ways, the machinist had become the embodiment of the ship itself, a living instrument of its survival. Even in the hours and days that followed, the crew remained acutely aware of what had happened. Conversations on the mess decks were quieter than usual, tinged with a reverence that could not be articulated. Sailors shared their experiences of that morning, each recalling a different moment: the tremor of the plane as it lurched, the sudden silence before the machinist acted, the collective holding of breath as he climbed, balanced, and stabilized the aircraft. It was a story that would be repeated in training sessions for decades, not merely as an anecdote, but as a lesson in courage, decisiveness, and the profound importance of individual initiative. The machinist himself was humble about the incident. He did not seek attention. In his eyes, he had simply done what needed to be done. Yet, the legacy of that desperate jump extended far beyond personal humility. It became a symbol of the extraordinary responsibility carried by every sailor on the Enterprise and, by extension, every member of a crew entrusted with lives, machinery, and national security. It reminded everyone that heroism does not always announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it manifests in a single, decisive act when no one else can intervene. Beyond the immediate implications, the incident also transformed naval training and safety protocols. Engineers and safety officers studied the events in painstaking detail. They dissected every action the machinist took, every decision point, every calculation of risk. The aim was not to replicate heroism. Heroism cannot be trained, but to create systems that supported decisive action in moments of danger. Emergency drills were refined. Protocols for aircraft parking and fuel management were reassessed. Lessons were shared across the fleet. In this way, the machinist's desperate jump saved not only the Enterprise but countless future sailors from similar near disasters. There was also a human element that could not be ignored. For the machinist, the psychological impact lingered. Those seconds of extreme danger, when life and death hung in balance, were etched into memory. Yet he found peace in knowing that his actions had preserved life and ensured the ship continued its mission. That peace, earned in the crucible of chaos, became a quiet source of pride, a reminder that courage often requires selflessness, risk, and an unwavering commitment to duty. Over time, the story of the desperate jump became part of the cultural fabric of the Enterprise. New sailors learned of it during orientation. Veterans shared it as an example of the kind of decisiveness and courage expected aboard the ship. It became a tale not only of survival but of the extraordinary potential within ordinary individuals. One person, one decision, one moment of courage had ripple effects that would be remembered and studied for generations. The ship itself seemed to acknowledge the moment in its own mechanical way. Aircraft took off and landed safely. Engines hummed without interruption. The deck returned to its rhythm. Yet beneath the surface, the memory of that morning persisted, a reminder that even the most advanced warship is vulnerable without the human element. The machinist's actions were a testament to that truth, an example of how courage, quick thinking, and determination can overcome even the most dangerous circumstances. In retrospect, it is clear that the desperate jump was more than a singular act of bravery. It was a defining moment in the life of the USS Enterprise. It exemplified the synergy between human skill and machine power, the delicate balance between risk and control, and the profound consequences of split-second decision-making. Without it, the Enterprise might have faced catastrophic damage, altering the course of its service history and the lives of the hundreds aboard. With it, the ship continued its mission, and the Machinist became an unsung hero, a quiet guardian of history. Ultimately, the story of the desperate jump serves as a reminder of the power of individual action, the importance of preparedness, and the remarkable potential of ordinary people to achieve extraordinary results under pressure. It teaches us that heroism is not always loud, visible, or celebrated. Sometimes, it is silent, personal, and performed in moments when every second matters. It is a testament to courage, resilience, and the enduring spirit of those who serve aboard the USS Enterprise. As the years pass and new generations of sailors take to the deck of the Enterprise, the tale of the Machinist's desperate jump will continue to inspire, reminding them that no matter how advanced their ship, no matter how sophisticated the technology, it is human courage and ingenuity that ultimately determine the outcome in moments of crisis. That single act, performed with determination and precision, ensured the survival of the ship, the safety of the crew, and the continuation of a legacy that has become legendary in naval history. In the end, the Machinist's story is not just about a jump or a near disaster. It is about the extraordinary power of human decision, the impact of a single courageous act, and the lasting legacy of those who rise to the occasion when the world hangs in the balance. It is about understanding that, in moments of danger, one individual can make all the difference. And it is a lesson for all of us, whether on a ship, in a city, or in life itself, that sometimes, the desperate leap is the only path to survival, to safety, and to history itself.